Over the past couple of years, I've taken up reading as a hobby. First, I started with the classics the way most people do. Pride and Prejudice, To Kill a Mockingbird, 1984. You know, all those books I pretended to read when assigned in high school. After I finished those, I searched for a genre that piqued my interest, but I couldn't settle on anything in particular. Then I realized it's not the genre that entices me the most. It's the character. What's better than relating to a character on a personal level? A well-written character lets you believe in them, empathize with their struggles, and get immersed in the storytelling. Characters are what give life to reading. But I only ever wanted to relate to those characters. I never wanted to be one. Until I found something strange. I picked up a book called A Small Town Murder a few days ago at my local bookstore. It was a lone copy on top of a stack of Bill Browder's freezing order. It seemed like someone had moved it to the front, almost spitefully, out of place on the shelf. When I picked it up, the elderly cashier leaned over the counter. He had a bald patch and a faux gold chain attached to his glasses. I'd come to know him well. He was a sweet man who seemed almost as lonely as me. He smiled wryly. He pointed to the book in my hand and said, "That one's from a local author." "Oh yeah? That's neat," I answered, trying to read the back cover. He went on, explaining that the author kept moving the book from the crime section to the front of the store. He chuckled and added, "He thinks I don't notice, but I've been moving them back after he leaves. Maybe I'll just keep it in the front from now on. No harm in that, is there?" I barely heard him. I was too absorbed in the back cover description of the book. The description read, "Ben, a young man in his early 20s, lives alone in a small town in Montana. He starts noticing strange things happening around his house until he realizes someone is watching him. Can Ben escape his stalker before becoming his latest victim?" It was unsettlingly familiar. I couldn't believe it. Someone had written a story about a character in small-town Montana. I wasn't the type to read crime or thrillers, but the character sounded too relatable to pass up. He even shared my name. I looked for a price tag, but couldn't find one. "How much?" I asked. The cashier waved off my question. "Honestly, the guy will be thrilled someone actually looked at it. Just take it." I smiled and thanked him, taking the book home. Since then, I couldn't seem to put it down. The character, Ben, was fascinatingly like me. He was in his early 20s, had thick red hair, freckles, big round glasses, unmarried, and had a cat who slept all day. He wasn't a superhero, just a relatable guy like me. What were the chances? It felt almost like reading an autobiography. I couldn't stop. The more I read, the more I realized just how similar Ben's life was to mine. He was smart but struggled socially in high school. He lived in a small town where everyone knew everyone, but he only knew the elderly bookstore cashier. It felt almost like a personal attack. I thought so too, until I got to chapter 4. That's when the unease began. Ben's trauma started to unfold. His best friend had been murdered 4 years ago. My best friend had been murdered 4 years ago. I started to panic. The similarities were too real. Red hair, freckles, loner, reader, lives in small-town Montana, has a relationship with an elderly bookstore cashier, and lost a friend to murder. This wasn't coincidence anymore. Then, the first major plot point hit. There was a whistling in the cornfields outside his house. My heart dropped. The rustling came. I threw the book across the room. It fluttered through the air and smacked into the wall, pages scattering. My heart raced. I couldn't breathe. The cashier's words replayed in my mind. "That one's from a local author." The author was hunting me. He knew. I switched on the bedroom light and crawled over to the window. I tried to keep out of view of the cornfield, then peeked over the sill. A few stalks swayed, but I couldn't tell if it was from the wind or if someone was out there. An owl hooted nearby. The sound nearly made me jump out of my skin. The author had been watching me. He knew when I would reach Act 2, where he would begin his pursuit. We were on a collision course for a showdown. I scanned the field. No sign of him. But I wasn't relieved. I crawled back to the book, found where I left off, and read on. I could either see it as a horrifying prediction or as a guide for what was to come. At that moment, I chose to see it as the latter and continued reading. Ben threw his book aside. The scene continued. His heart beat uncontrollably. He could hardly breathe. Ben switched on the bedroom light and waddled to the window. He peered over the sill, squinting into the darkness. A few stalks still swayed. Ben wrote off the sound, but he knew one thing for sure. He was being hunted. Since then, I haven't touched the book. I can hardly look at it without my skin crawling. I feel like the killer is watching me read, waiting for me to turn the page of my own demise. Then I remembered the cashier's words. No harm in that, is there? That statement couldn't have been further from the truth. My breath shakes and hasn't stopped since. The hunt has already begun, and I'm the prey. What would you do if you realized the line between fiction and reality wasn't so clear? What would you do if you were me?